Welcome to this edition of A Conversation With. I'm Jim Marshall of the New Bedford Cable Network, and as we enter the new year here, I felt it was time to bring our friend back. She's got nothing else to do with her time, so why not just stop and visit Jean Fox, who is I want to make sure I get your title right. I always say you're just the rail guru, but you're the Director of Public Engagement for the MBTA South Coast Rail Project.
Spot on.
Very big business card name.
Yeah.
I think Rail Guru is a lot shorter, but they won't let that happen.
No.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
for
It's great to
coming
see you. Thanks for having me.
We haven't had you in a little bit.
No.
Where do we stand?
Where
are we right now? Because
people
people are talking about it.
Good, and not the way they were 2 years ago. It's not happening, right?
Right. Well, yeah. Now it's when is it going to happen? Oh, yeah. I mean,
Exactly.
I mean, you do have those people that are saying like, oh, well, yeah, they say it's in the spring, but it's.
Well, who can blame them, honestly?
Yep.
Long
And
linear,
you lived here. So.
Yes, but long linear projects frequently run into hiccups along the way, and South Coast Rail was no exception. And it's not all COVID, and it's not all supply chain. I mean, things happen, but we've caught up. So everywhere you look, all 6 stations are done, and certificates of occupancy are in hand. The layovers are complete. There's minor punch list stuff going on, but extremely minor. All of the ATC, automatic train control, and PTC, positive train control testing is behind us, which is a Herculean lift. Those are federal mandates. Over 1,000 tests conducted for PTC alone.
Wow.
And if one goes wrong, it's back to square one. So those 2 systems have to work flawlessly. And they're all about safety and all about communication with the engineer and the train. Mm-hmm. And we have them in very good condition. And now we're training people.
Do they have to be done every day too? Like now that you've started, do you have to keep doing stuff every day to ensure that it's?
Well, there's certainly regular updating that happens.
Okay.
And Keolis is now operating the railroad.
So what's the difference then? Explain
All right.
that to people. Keolis is now handling the operation. What's
Yes.
the difference between that and the state?
There isn't one.
Okay.
Basically, the MBTA owns this line, like they do all commuter rail and the subways and a lot of buses. But they have an operator, a commuter rail operator. Back in the day, some folks may remember MBCR. That was the operator. We then re-upped with Keolis. They're based out of France, but they run commuter rail all over the world. So they are under contract with the MBTA to operate commuter rail in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Okay.
So it is the state.
It is the state,
Yeah.
and they now have, right now they
Total
are
control.
total control of the
Yes,
operation.
Yes. So I'll give you for example, where this transition is difficult for people to understand. Calls come into our project all the time. This grade crossing seems to be malfunctioning. Well, there are blue signs on the grade crossing that you use. They're called emergency notification signs. They're ENS signs. They're little blue signs with a phone number and an identification number on it. So if you happen to be at a grade crossing, that's the best way to report a problem.
Okay.
In the wintertime, what happens is salt gets in and sometimes can mess with the signals.
Right.
And that's happened in a couple of crossings already, even though we haven't had Snowmageddon this year.
Right.
We have had situations where they've had to put salt down to keep the roads safe. So if that gets into the signal system, you might have a little bit of a gate going up and down. Call that number and you're good to go, because they're the fastest way to make sure that can be addressed. And if there's a train coming, all that stuff will be addressed much more quickly than if you call South Coast Rail now.
Last time you were here, and it wasn't a year ago, it was months ago.
Yes.
But you talked about the safety tests that had to go on. There were so many safety tests that needed to be completed before really anything could get going. How are those right now? Is that part of those, what we're saying?
That's part of it. That's
Yeah.
part of it, but then there's also safety certification. So you go back and you check the boxes on everything. Is the rail in good condition? Are all the bridges in good condition? Are all the stations in good condition? So that process is still underway, but advancing nicely. So like the Fall River line was mostly done anyway. That's been sitting there for a while. So it was just getting up to speed on everything on the New Bedford line, which, we also want to include East Taunton because that was the most complex station and really wasn't completed till September.
Yeah, you were saying the last time you said Taunton was the one that really needed to get finished.
Yeah.
And I asked you off camera because I was surprised. I mean, the perception is when you drive at 24 and 140, I mean, you still see a lot of work, but
Right.
I didn't realize that's not really all the
Separate
rail project.
No, no, and I'm glad you bring that up, Jim, because it is important for people to understand there's a highway project that's going there now that will be underway into 2028. It's what we call the 14024 interchange project. It's really to do major improvements at an interchange that has notorious reputation for bad queuing, accidents.
Oh, actually, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's really a tough interchange. So there's a major redo of that going on right now, and part of that is a dedicated ramp that will get people into Industrial Drive, which is the roadway that leads into the East Taunton station. If you go up Industrial Drive and you look for the station, you're going to see a very complete station.
Okay.
But the road work is a separate project, and we coordinated with MassDOT on that all along.
So the New Bedford stations are completed.
Yes, they are. Totally complete. Everything is complete. Certificates of occupancy, all inspections done.
Let me ask you this, because one of the things you were telling us last time, you were going around to the community, talking to
Yes.
schools,
Oh,
talking
yes.
to different, are those, and I don't know if they're requirements, but are those efforts completed?
No, I have a bunch in New Bedford coming up in a week and a half. We're going to be at New Bedford High for all the lunch hours, one of the middle schools. That's an ongoing effort, frankly, to get the safety messaging out. I have a series of videos that the schools have access to. They can show anytime they want, just to remind young people that the right-of-way is a dangerous place to be. It's also illegal to be on it, but we haven't worried about that
Right.
for years. Now we do. We have a lot of trespassing in this corridor.
Well, you were
Awful lot.
saying last show that there were people, I mean, you've got video of people
I do.
on the
Tons of it.
train, or on the tracks, I should say.
Yes.
And
Walking, biking, ATVing,
ATV.
crossing,
Right.
using it as a sidewalk because it's a shortcut for them. Absolutely the most dangerous thing you can do right now. These trains are running all the time, and you don't know which direction they're coming from. You don't know what time they're coming,
Right.
Especially right now where we're doing these runs. Once there's a schedule, you may have a little bit more, but even that can get screwed up. So,
Right.
the advice to everybody, or the caution to everybody, is just stay away from the tracks. Honestly, it's the safest thing to do.
Right.
And certainly don't ride your ATV on it.
No, and I know you made that point last time that the ATVs were an issue, especially in the fall.
Huge issue all summer long, actually, and
Okay.
into the fall. And not only is it dangerous, they can't hear anything over the roar of the engine,
Correct.
right?
Right.
They're also damaging the infrastructure. So they ride on the ballast and on the tracks and cause damage, which could cause additional problems for the railroad. So there are other places to ride, and I would strongly encourage
Exactly,
people to
yes.
find those places, but please stay off the tracks.
The last time, too, it was toward the end of summer, you were here and you were talking about the brush clearing
Yes.
that had to go on. But as you were saying off camera, this is, and it makes sense, this is a constant.
Absolutely. It's called the Vegetative Management Plan, and it is necessary to keep the right-of-way clear of vegetation. And in the fall, we have the problem I mentioned to you. We have the problem of leaves falling on the
And
tracks.
I didn't even think of that.
Well, they create a very slippery condition,
Right.
so it makes it a derailment is absolutely possible if there's a huge deposit of wet, yucky leaves on the tracks.
No,
So-
you're right.
So we do a vegetative management plan, and they're clearing couple times a year anyway. Sometimes they have to go in additionally if there's particular growth. There's one area, for example, in Lakeville where we've had this invasive weed that is taking over, so we're going to have to address that.
Yeah, if things go around,
Yes.
weeds and stuff go around the track.
Yeah, they can go, and the fences, they obstruct line of sight. You know, even though a train can't stop for 18 football fields in length, they do rely on their vision, and they actually report back things they see that we need to address. For example, we saw trespassers in this area.
Right.
So the engineers report that information, but if it's all covered with vegetation, they can't do that.
I mean, we didn't even get to it because we kind of got sidetracked, but as you're talking about the project, it sounds like a stupid question, but you're still on target for the spring.
We are. We're super
And again,
on target.
people are
I get
skeptical.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't blame them. I absolutely, I feel your pain.
Yeah.
You know, when we didn't make the first deadline, we didn't make the second deadline. That's extremely frustrating for people, especially when they can see so much work has happened, right?
Right.
Well, and now it's even worse because now they're seeing trains running,
Right.
but there aren't any passengers on them.
Right.
But that's all part of a very intensive and important state and national process, right? Making sure that everything we've built is sound, making sure the trains run safely and reliably, and making sure the people who operate those trains know what the heck they're doing. Absolutely essential.
You were talking about, and I'm just curious because it's winter now.
Yeah.
What does snow bring when it comes to safety? You talked about the leaves, which I never would have thought of, but I get the brush and stuff like that. What about snow or ice?
Do you remember Snowmageddon?
I do.
10 years ago?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
do I. Lived the dream.
Yeah. It's
Snow-
like blizzard every other week.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And 20 feet of snow cumulatively. What we learned from that is that we need to do a better job. You can't just put a train out early and hope it clears the snow and the ice.
Right.
Which is what we used to do.
Okay.
Now we have heaters all embedded in the system. So if
In the tracks?
in the right of way. Yeah,
Wow.
we do.
Okay.
We do. We have track heaters in there and blowers, so that they and they're all throughout the system. Ours are brand new, obviously. We just put them in, but the MBTA worked diligently in making sure that we never had that situation again, where literally those trains were frozen in place.
Yeah.
They couldn't go anywhere.
Right.
Which was a real problem because I know I was in Boston when one of those disasters happened, and they took us out of the covered Park Street station, shuttled us over to JFK UMass, and tried to put us on buses.
And you were waiting for buses.
We were waiting for buses forever, and the final one that I got on was an articulated bus, one of those really long ones with the accordion in the middle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, my car in the parking lot for the Red Line was Quincy Adams. That bus couldn't travel the little streets of Quincy to get us
No,
to the
right.
station. But the trains were paralyzed. So we have now rectified that situation, which you'll find in any northern climate is the way to go, to make sure you have those heaters and blowers in place, and they are.
You know, we talked to the folks at CERTA, Eric Rousseau, and he said the biggest thing for the bus, and I assume it's probably the biggest thing for you, is just the reliability.
Right.
People need to know that if the bus is scheduled for blank, the bus is going to be there.
Yeah, and they're not standing there in the exposed
Right,
area.
and you
yeah.
got to just bring it up, and I assume that's the same with you.
Yes.
The train has, if the train's going to be there at X time, it's got to be there because really that's everything. Credibility is everything.
Oh, it is, and people do rely on their public transportation. And right now, we are at about, overall, I think 96% on time for commuter rail in the state. And it varies line to line. They've just refurbished a whole bunch of locomotives, so the goal is to make sure that we get to 100%, and we're definitely getting there. We want, and even if it's 2 minutes, that matters to people. And we don't want people standing outside on these platforms in the winter or even in the heat of the summer for a train that doesn't come. So it is, to Eric's point, absolutely essential that we run on time.
We already have the trains,
Yes,
the physical trains
we do.
now.
We have them.
They're, I don't know if they're used at other places, but these are just for the New Bedford line.
We bought
Fall River line.
both the Fall River and New Bedford. So we bought 16 bi-level coaches to accommodate the added ridership. Now, will they necessarily, all 16 of those, come to us? No, because overall the T ordered 80, but we knew that 16 of those were for us. So at any given time, 16 bi-level cars, which can hold like 150 people each, will be available to South Coast Rail. We're trying to get rid of all those single-level cars anyway, because people really want commuter rail. They want to be able to get on a train and get
Right.
from point A to point B, and they don't want to stand for an hour.
How are those trains? Are they the
They're
same?
wonderful.
I was going to say.
Oh, they're really nice.
Yeah.
They're basic commuter rail. I mean, there's nothing cushy here. This isn't first-class service, but
Right.
it's comfortable. There's some tables, there's lavatories, so they have certain amenities, and they're really, the one that we rode down on a couple of months ago, just doing a test run, very comfortable ride, really comfortable. It's quiet, and also it's kind of fun to look out the window from that perspective.
Right. Now, how long did it take the train to get from Middleborough to New Bedford?
Like about a half hour.
Really?
It was amazing.
Which is really what it would be on a drive, too, when you think about it.
Depends. If there's an accident, you're not getting
Absolutely,
there.
right. Well, that's the X factor on anything.
True.
You know.
True. but you're less likely to have any kind of highway impact on a train.
Correct.
Where that's the problem with the highways right now. They've all
They're so congested.
backfilled, yes. And it's all times of day now.
Oh, it's 7 days a week now.
It is 7 days a week. It doesn't matter if it's 7 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock in the morning. There's congestion everywhere. So helping people find another option that works will help ease some of that congestion.
And the thought is, and you've talked about, you've been pretty consistent with this. I mean, you're looking at roughly a 90-minute
Yes.
ride from New Bedford to
Boston, South Station. Yes. That's what it looks like. All the modeling, that's what it shows.
Yeah.
From both cities.
And you were saying too, the interesting thing too, the great thing is there's the Middleborough, I guess that's the link, if you will.
Yeah.
Middleborough, Taunton, and then right through to New Bedford. I mean, that's it for stops.
Exactly it.
The 2 stops in New Bedford.
Yeah, you go all the way down. You have the north one and they have the regular. Over by C Street, yeah. We have the 2 in New Bedford. That will be a straight shot. They will be going 79 miles an hour there.
Really?
Yep. That's the maximum authorized speed, and where they don't have a lot of grade crossings and they don't have a lot of station stops, if they have no reason to stop, they can get up to speed and have been already. These
Yeah, as I
qualification
said,
trains
I know
have.
that Rep. Cabral and Rep. Hendricks said they were on that
Yes,
ride.
they
and
were.
They said it was a great ride.
They loved
Very
it.
comfortable and very
And
quick.
I brought chocolate. Always makes it fun.
We're talking to Jean Fox. She is the Director of Public Engagement for the South Coast Rail Project, and we're talking about the Commuter Rail Project, which has been her life for the past few years, to say the least.
Yes.
And I know, like I said, there are a lot of people looking forward to that day. And so just trying to get that. I know we had the general manager of the T down here not that long ago.
That's
either,
right.
To talk about the project in Fall River and New Bedford.
And then he showed up subsequently in Taunton.
Yep.
So he has made a commitment to being present in the region. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see him again.
How is the funding for the project? You always hear, and I'm generalizing now because you hear about the T and its costs and
Right.
overruns and what have you. And I don't know if you can answer it, but how does that impact? Because people don't care about that. They just
No,
want to
they
know
don't.
if the train in New Bedford is going to run when
Of
it's
course.
supposed to, and will there be enough people and what have you.
Of course. So we were, fully state funded, $1 billion project, and we have had no problem with that budget. We have, what you can do is you can resequence things to be more efficient in some areas. Where we had some supply chain issues, we might have taken an impact, but that's why you build contingency into every budget. So we've been fine. We're not overrun. Even though we have the delay, typically when there's a delay,
There's overruns.
there's usually an overrun,
Right.
right? We haven't had that. The projects were well bid by very competent contractors who know what they're doing. So the ones that you see down here on the New Bedford line it was a joint venture. They call themselves South Coast Rail Constructors, but it was Middlesex and Tudor Perini. And Middlesex has been the predominant contractor down here, and they've done an exceptionally good job. And they have a lot of people working for them who are from this area,
Which is key too.
which is also great.
You were talking about the off camera, which I think is interesting, that the conductors or the people who are driving the train, that they have to know the route. They've got to
they
know
do.
Are they local folks too, or is
They
it?
can be,
Yeah.
and everyone should stay tuned because I am trying to get a job fair going before we launch for MBTA and Keolis. So these are Keolis personnel
That's
on the
actually
trains.
good to know. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a date yet, unfortunately, just a teaser.
And
that
she'll
I-
let us know.
Yes, I will
She'll
let you
send
know.
out. She'll let us
I will
know.
let
We'll,
you know.
we'll get that on the air.
We're trying to do that, absolutely. And I've had a lot of interest from people here, and not necessarily just driving the train or cleaning at the layover, but absolutely
There's
now
there's a few jobs.
Well, there are, and now you can take the train, and if they have a Boston-based job that interests you, you have an option to get there without going crazy
Right.
on Route 24
Right.
or the expressway. So so the T, and let's go back to the budget discussion. Yes, there was a problem with the budget on the T side of the house. $800 million for next year, looking very dire.
Right.
But the governor's budget has come up with a way to fix that, to bridge that gap. So it allows General Manager Eng to continue his very aggressive and intentional campaign to fix the infrastructure that's broken, and then continue to look at things we can do to just build ridership, build reliability.
Because the biggest disappointment would be if somehow the funding was,
Wouldn't it?
after you've done all this work and all, I don't want to say the
all
hype.
built
Hype's not
in.
the right word, but all the excitement and all the things that
Well, it
have
is
taken,
hype right now, Jim.
right, all the things that have been taking place,
Mm-hmm.
if things were scaled back, it'd be a huge disappointment.
Oh, it would be awful. The only thing I could say is if they had to scale back, it would be universally. It would be every line, not just us. But the budget is fixed. We put in our operations projections years ago,
Yeah.
what we estimated it would cost to operate this line. And it's the first major expansion in decades. I mean, they have not added commuter rail lines in decades. So we're new.
Right.
We had to be very careful about figuring out what it's going to cost to run. We built it with our $1 billion allocation, and we know that the MBTA has now in the budget the ability to fund this line.
Where do we stand as far as the schedule? We know the routes, obviously,
Right.
but where do we stand with the schedule? You were pretty adamant that you wanted some things. Mm-hmm. How are we doing? And I know they're not official yet, but are you pleased with the way things are going?
Yes, Jim, I really am. We had initially projected 26 trips a day, so roughly 13 and 13
Right.
back and forth to each city. But what railroad operations at the MBTA has come up with to just help people with some flexibility and add a little additional service is a train shuttle. And the way this would work is you want to go to New Bedford and you're standing at South Station, but the next train is a Fall River train. You can get on that Fall River train, get off at East Taunton, and pick up the shuttle that will take you to New Bedford.
Oh, wow.
So it's a two-seat ride,
Right.
but you're not standing at South Station waiting an hour for the next train to New Bedford. You have this option. So they've added that, which gives us additional service. It makes it more robust. And I think for people, I said to somebody just yesterday, I would rather wait in East Taunton and be that much closer to home than wait in South
Yeah,
Station.
it seems closer.
It's
That's
a
for
lot
sure.
closer. I mean, I know there are dining and shopping options at South Station that we don't have in East Taunton,
Right.
but it's much closer to home.
Last time you were talking about there were going to be the early morning train routes.
Yes, the nurse train.
But you were talking, and you were pretty adamant at that time, two things that you were talking about specifically. You wanted a late night run,
Yes,
and you wanted, obviously, some service, a good amount of service on the weekends.
yes,
How do those look?
beautiful.
Okay.
They look beautiful, so we know there's going to be an early morning train, and it's still called at the
Which
MBTA.
makes sense. I mean, that's
absolutely, you
right.
get people that have 6 and 7 o'clock shifts.
Right,
They need to
right.
get into town. So we are going to have that.
But
And
you
then-
were adamant with the night.
Then we
that-
had to have a late night. What if people go to a game?
Exactly.
You want to be able to get home, so we will have a
What
late
if
night
people are
train.
working at the State House till 10 o'clock?
And that does happen.
Not that didn't happen, but
No, and I've heard it happen.
yeah.
No, so yeah, we got the late night and we have the weekend service. Exactly what that looks like, I can't tell you right now. As we get closer to revenue service, we'll know that. But we have the models working. The qualifying runs right now are helping us figure out how all that's going to work.
Yeah.
And you know, it gets tweaked. And the MBTA typically looks at all schedules and tweaks them about every 6 months anyway.
Oh, really?
Yes, they do. But we want the early train. Worcester has one.
Yeah.
We need it. We need it from here. And so that's the plan.
How about, we've got 5 minutes left, this half hour's flown. Has the estimate of people using commuter rail changed since, I mean, because this has been going on for a while, and
Oh,
you've done
yeah.
this. But have you done more studies to see how many people will be using it?
No, we didn't. We based everything on the ridership analysis that was conducted. The first one. So, and that was based on a total of 3,200 trips altogether. So we had 1,610 and 3,200 altogether additional riders. That's both ways.
Yeah.
How we firm that up at this point, doing another analysis is probably moot. It's going to depend on all the things we've already talked about. Is this an attractive option to people? At Zone 8, it should be.
Yeah.
So
Well, you see more people moving too. I mean,
You
there's more
do.
housing developments coming
Everywhere,
up here.
yes.
And not just here, but I know that the communities are also facing the pressure of more people.
MBTA communities
Yeah.
too, and the fact that we have housing shortages, so we're going to see that. And there is reciprocity. There are people that live closer to Boston that would be much happier living down here, but they need that link. So we'll see. I think ridership is something that typically evolves over time. I think I'm very happy with the fare structure, the fact that if you ride the Middleborough-Lakeville line out of Lakeville right now, that's Zone 8, so are New Bedford and Fall River. So that's a a tempting thing. And they still have that $10 weekend fare thing.
I was just going to say,
yeah.
when you talk about the fare, what's it going to cost, do you think, for people if they just want to take the train up to see a show in Boston or something?
Yeah, but
it's going to be costed.
It's $12.25 each way
Yeah.
is the flat rate without buying in bulk or having any other kind
Right.
of discount. Eligible people for the discount would be $6 each way. But I'll tell you what, and anybody who does this, you know, the wear and tear on your car, what you pay to park,
Gas.
gas, insurance, all that other stuff is not your problem when you're on the train.
No, I know my daughter used the commuter rail out of Lakeville
Mm-hmm.
last semester because she had an internship up in Boston. So
Oh,
she was
nice.
taking the train every day, which is, as she said, no disrespect to the bus, but it's a lot nicer than the bus. But she kept saying, when's the train coming to New Bedford? Because getting up and going to Lakeville, she was not thrilled about. She's like, I could just roll out of bed
And then onto the train.
and then onto the train.
Yeah, and a lot of people, if it's an early morning train, they use it to take a nap. You can't do that in the car.
No. Well,
can- Whoa,
some do.
goodness
But,
me.
you know,
But you can also work on the train.
Yep.
You know, there's Wi-Fi. It's so civilized now.
but again, the cost is when you think about it. I mean, $25, that's cheaper than parking's like
Anything.
$60 for
Easy.
a day.
Yes, it is. It's and there just isn't enough of it. More and more in the city of Boston, you're finding the garages are going away, making way for other things too. So sometimes you get up there and the garage near where you want to be is full.
Yeah, there's no guarantees. I mean,
Nope.
either that or you got to get a monthly pass or whatever.
You got to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is prohibitively expensive.
Correct.
Real estate in Boston is very expensive.
We got 2 minutes to go.
Oh.
I want you to just touch base. What's immediately next for you as you're talking about the project right now? You just say you're going to have some public events, but
Yeah, we'll have public events. We'll do a major launch when we're ready to go. We will invite the communities to participate. Hopefully we'll have all the dignitaries. This is a huge, huge victory for our region. And I know it comes with inconvenience. You can't build anything without inconveniencing someone. But overall, when you see a public transit connection like this, you see economic development, you see opportunity. And that's what I see for this project. I see it bringing us to a new place. And the city of New Bedford's already doing so many wonderful things. This is another wonderful thing in the agenda. So I see us as really benefiting from this connection, and I hope everyone takes full advantage and learns about it. And by the way, when we do open, we'll have ambassadors at each station helping you figure out how do I use the app to park, how do I buy
Right.
my ticket, all of those things. So if there's a little fear and trepidation as we launch, there will be people there to help.
if people have questions, how they can check things out or get in touch with you.
Jean.fox@state.ma.us.
She does answer her emails because I
I
send them to
do,
her
he
frequently.
does.
I do send them to her frequently. And let us know, too, if there's anything coming up date-wise,
fair,
job
too.
fair, or
Yes.
any public hearings that you're having.
Absolutely.
We can get them on for you.
Excellent. That's wonderful. Thank you.
It's great seeing you as always.
Always. Yep. I
We'll
appreciate
talk
it.
to you again soon, I hope.
I hope so.
That's
Thank
going to
you.
do it for this edition of A Conversation With. I'm Jim Marshall of the New Bedford Cable Network. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.